Policing for profit? Here's the case against civil asset forfeiture. Hello, I'm Steve Forbes, and this is What's Ahead, where you get the insights you need to better navigate these turbulent times. Civil asset forfeiture, the legal practice allowing government to seize property suspected of involvement in a crime, represents one of the most troubling erosions of due process in American law. Despite its stated purpose of disrupting criminal enterprises, the practice has metastasized into a system that punishes the innocent, enriches law enforcement agencies, and ignores the foundational presumption that citizens are innocent until proven guilty. The injustice is structural because seizures are typically civil proceedings brought against the property itself rather than its owners. The injustice is structural because seizures are typically civil proceedings brought against the property itself rather than its owner. Individuals lose standard criminal protections. There is no right to appointed counsel. The burden of proof is lower, and owners must often spend more money fighting in court than the seized property is worth, which in many instances is just a few $100s. This is not a bug in the system. For many agencies, it is the point. 43 states allow police and prosecutors to keep between 50 to 100% of seized assets. Real cases illustrate the human cost. Motel owner Russ Caswell nearly lost his family's Tewksbury, Massachusetts motel, worth over $1 million, and owed debt-free for decades. The Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, argued that drug transactions had occurred on the property, despite Caswell having no involvement whatsoever. In another case, brothers Jeff and James Hirsch had $100,000 seized from their small candy business by the IRS, not because they are accused of any crime, but because they made frequent cash deposits under $10,000, a pattern the government called structuring, even though the brothers were simply following their bank's own advice. The money was eventually returned after intense public outcry, but only after months of financial hardship. Perhaps most damning is what forfeiture does to law enforcement itself. When agencies are permitted to keep seized assets, the incentive to seize becomes financial rather than investigative. The Philadelphia District Attorney's Office took in tens of millions of dollars in forfeiture revenue over roughly a decade, seizing homes from families over minor drug offenses involving their children. One family had their home taken after their son was caught with $40 worth of heroin. They had no idea the seizure was coming and were given no chance to respond before losing their house. These are not isolated failures. They are predictable outcomes of a system designed without adequate checks. The Institute for Justice, a nonprofit public interest law firm dedicated to fighting government abuses, has long been battling this un-American practice. It recently cited a Texas case where police seized a couple's life savings based on a suspected connection to drugs. No drugs were found, no arrests were made, and no charges were filed. But it took years of effort to win a court decision to get their money back. And even then, government authorities are dragging their feet on returning the money. Several states, including New Mexico and North Carolina, have meaningfully reformed or abolished civil forfeiture by requiring a criminal conviction before property can be permanently seized. The results have not been the law enforcement catastrophe critics predicted. They've simply been fairer. Unfortunately, the federal government has something called the Equity Sharing Program, whereby if local police can partner with a federal agency, they can circumvent state restrictions and keep 80% of the forfeited proceeds. A government that can take your property before proving you did anything wrong has too much power. Yet the Supreme Court thus far has punted on kiboshing this flagrant abuse. So has Congress. Civil asset forfeiture should be abolished, or at minimum require what justice has always demanded, a conviction first. I'm Steve Forbes. Thanks for listening. Do send in your comments and suggestions. I look forward to being with you soon again.